When Israel are united, no one can touch them. They are untouchable. Almost a mystical force surrounds them. They know that Hamas can't have an impact, or any other terrorist. But when we're divided, that's when they attack.
Welcome back to The Common Denominator. I'm Ilana Rachel Daniel. In a rare moment in the past 9 months, world events this week have exceeded even Israel in its high intensity and rapid fire pace. Former President Trump survived an assassination attempt. Days later, sitting President Joe Biden withdrew from the presidential race that will take place this November. Kamala Harris is expected to take his place as the Democratic nominee, and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has flown to D.C. and will speak there in the Congress today. Kamala Harris has declined to attend Netanyahu's speech, but will meet with him privately before he heads to Florida for a meeting with President Trump. While we witness these events with mouths agape, peering up to see what on earth is coming at us next, it's with some small relief to have just a few days where we here in Israel are not both the number one topic and target of the world's vitriol, nor at least momentarily its upheaval. Sitting with us today is David Mencer. David ran the Labour Party Friends of Israel during the Tony Blair premiership, among many other related tasks. David is a spokesman for the Office of the Prime Minister of Israel and a communications professional with 30 years experience. David, it is our great pleasure to welcome you here today.
Good to be with you, Ilana. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So let's start off first, if you will. Describe for us somewhat the situation for Jews in the UK, perhaps elsewhere in Europe, certainly since October 7th, but where, if you will, where and when were the seeds planted, and how have you watched it progress into fruition?
So this war has unfortunately raised the levels of anti-Semitism throughout the world, and no less in the UK, to the highest levels that anyone has ever seen. Lots of people have made comparisons to the dark early years of the 1930s and the run-up to the Second World War. I don't want to go there, but I will tell you that for ordinary Jewish people around the world, this is a scary time. For myself and my family, I was born in the UK. I always grew up in the UK. But when the opportunity came to move to Israel together with my wife and kids, I jumped at it. I did not like the way things were looking in the UK for the British Jewish community, a situation where we, as a Jewish community, were able to raise the legitimate concerns of the country's Jewish community directly to the leaders, the elected leaders. I've seen that situation decline, the propensity, the power of our voice. I've seen it decline in its power, and it made me feel fearful. And that is why I decided to move my family to Israel. But the biggest precipitant was actually the election of Jeremy Corbyn. I was, I could call it a macher. That's not a political phrase. I was a macher in the British Labour Party. When Jeremy Corbyn became the leader and moved the party to the extremes of the left, that was the end for me, and I decided to move my family over here. And I can honestly say, despite the travails of this almost 9 or 10 months of war that we face now, an unprecedented war, a war we didn't want or didn't ask for, I have not regretted it for a single moment. There is only one homeland for the Jewish people. Home, they say, is the place that when you have to go there, they must take you in. This country took us in. I've been delighted to come here. Yes, of course, it hasn't always been easy, but this is a phenomenal place. And I always remember what the Melkaz Klita, or the home office here in Israel, when we made Aliyah, we asked them, are we doing the right thing? And she said to us with her Hebrew, for the Jew, it's the best. And I believe this is a homeland for the Jewish people, and I'm delighted to be able to pay to use my skills to be able to defend this country and to promote its interests directly to international media.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And it is exactly that group effort where all hands on deck are needed and everyone contributes, because we are a work in progress. And what's clear is that the ingredients are viable if there's still some rough edges to work out. So in light of your expertise in UK Parliament, I really want to ask the question that's in the minds of Jews across the diaspora, and that's regarding the systemic anti-Israel sentiment that we experience across Western governments. It seems to be an open distaste for Israel that's seeped through both policy and approach, because Israel is, for all our imperfections, again, it's a lawful and largely democratic state surrounded by those who swear at all costs to destroy both it and the democracy that the West itself clings to. So logic, morality, self-preservation seem to go against this negative sort of sentiment. Can you explain why the affection for Israel has eroded and been replaced by those who call in the broad light of day for our downfall?
No, Ilana, I can't explain it. The old adage goes that you find out who your friends are during times of crisis, and we've certainly found out who our friends are. Look, anti-Semitism is not something, or Jew hatred, as I like to call it, is not something that we need to try and understand in terms of, why do people dislike us as a people? Why is there this irrational hatred? Is there something that we've done, or is it something that we haven't done, or is it something that we've done in society, or is it something about our history, or is it whatever it is? That's not our job. We don't have to explain why people hate the Jewish people. They do. It has come out in droves, unfortunately, over the last 9 or 10 months. It's very, very disturbing. But once again, it underlines the importance of an Israel, which is, of course, the only Jewish homeland in the entire world. There are 50 Islamic states, there are umpteen Christian states, and of other religions as well. There is only one state for the Jewish people. You talked about this country evolving. Herzl, you could say the Moses of modern Zionism, said that Zionism, if it is anything, is a phenomenon which is constantly evolving. Israel is a work in progress. We're always trying to improve ourselves. I always remember the words which I heard Shimon Peres say, the former president of this country and prime minister, its 9th president. He said that, what did Jews give to humanity? And the answer he gave was dissatisfaction. We're a people which is always dissatisfied, always trying to improve things. So we do like to complain in this country. Jewish people generally do like to complain and improve things. But as to why there's been this huge rise in anti-Semitism, it's not for us to explain. I make no apology for that fact. Yes, of course, the media have gone down exactly the road which Hamas led them to. This idea of disproportionate effect on civilians. They fought from civilian areas, knowing that the toll would fall on civilians. Hamas are not upset why there have been civilian casualties. They wish there were 10 times more civilian casualties. The Hamas are not upset of destruction that there has been in our effort to destroy Hamas inside Gaza. They're only upset that there's not 10 times more destruction. They've led the media down this road. They have reported it blindly. They've taken their word for it. To this day, they constantly quote Hamas's figures. No other country would quote the figures of ISIS or of Al Qaeda. Yet, of course, unquestionably, they quote the figures. So, look, this is a hatred which we face, all of us here, but that doesn't change the fact that we need to stand up to it. So that's what our role is here in the Prime Minister's office, to correct the facts, to make people understand the situation from our point of view, of all the efforts we're making to limit, as we go after these Hamas terrorist organization, which is trying to maximize civilian casualties, all the efforts we're making to keep civilians out of harm's way, and of course, our 3 war aims, which remain: destroying this genocidal, murderous Hamas organization, to bring our hostages home, 120 of them, and of course, to ensure that Gaza can never again be a threat to our people.
Amen. David, do you believe, in light of the elections both in UK and what's coming up in the US, do you think that having a Jewish spouse or relative will have a positive or negative or any substantial effect at all on someone's leadership role. We have, of course, UK's Starmer's wife is Jewish, Trump's grandchildren, and Kamala Harris's husband. And you have Jews speaking for or against for those reasons. Really, in reality, what sort of influence could that really have?
Well, it's a personal opinion of mine. I don't think that it's something which is interesting. I don't think it's a game changer, put it that way. I think what is a game changer is when politicians visit this country. That is a game changer. I've actually brought many politicians from the UK to Israel to see all sides of the equation here, to see the way Israelis live and to see how Palestinians live as well in Judea and Samaria, in the West Bank and in Gaza. I think the most powerful thing you can do for a foreign politician is to bring them here. And I've seen it many, many times. It happens maybe after a few hours, even the first day of their trip here. Suddenly, the penny drops and they understand how small this country is, how young our soldiers are, the threat we face from our neighbors, which are trying every which way, in different ways, constantly evolving ways, to harm us and to destroy us. The peace-loving nature of the people which live here. So I think the most powerful thing that has an impact on a politician is their actual experience. There's no education like experience. So I would say that was more important than a Jewish spouse, whether it's Vice President Kamala Harris's Jewish spouse or Keir Starmer's Jewish spouse. That's interesting. Don't get me wrong, it is interesting, and it's something which these politicians can talk about in terms of their understanding, of their appreciation of the Jewish people and their traditions and their culture. But I don't think it's a game changer. Getting them over here and understanding what's going on, seeing it with their own eyes, that really is what works.
It's 100% true. I completely agree, and everyone's invited for falafel. 100%, 100%. So Bibi's scheduled to address the Congress today. What's the purpose of his speech and his trip at this tenuous time, locally and abroad? What does he hope to achieve? And do you think that his goals have been sidelined by the upheaval, by the assassination attempt and Biden's withdrawal?
I think you're right, Ilana, that events are moving particularly fast, even by Israeli standards. The amount of news which is happening so quickly in quick succession is truly breathtaking. Look, I think first things first, the Prime Minister was invited by a cross-party a group of Congress people to address Congress. This will be his fourth address to Congress. He's addressed Congress more than any other international world leader, something which he's sincerely proud of, representing our people directly on the world stage. To Congress. It's not only the people in front of him, but it's the world stage, which the ability of addressing both houses of Congress. Look, first and foremost, he took the first meetings which the Prime Minister had when he landed in the US was to meet with the hostages which he took with him on the airplane, as well as families of hostages which are in the US already. That was the very first meeting, and that should give you a good example, a good idea of what the Israeli government's priorities are. But of course, for the US Israel relationship, we've got so much in common. We constantly talk about these shared values of democracy and the rule of law. This country is the only democracy in hundreds of miles in any direction. We're a bastion of democracy in a very tough neighborhood, as is the US. But we don't only share these values, we share the same enemies, unfortunately. And that enemy, namely, is Iran. They're not only our enemy, the purpose of Iran attacking us on October 7th through their proxies of Hamas and also with Hezbollah, but also the other 7 fronts of which we're fighting this war. They're trying to defeat this country. They say it very openly. Jewish people understand that when someone says that they wish to destroy you, we should take them seriously. And we do take them seriously because we believe that they mean it. But they're not only after us, which they call the little Satan. They're after the US as well. They're after the UK as well. They call them the big Satan. So we know we're on the front line of this battle. That's the message which the Prime Minister will give later today in Congress, because that all-important relationship, it's all about shoring up that relationship and re-anchoring that relationship. No matter who wins the battle for the White House in November, that relationship is absolutely key. And that's what one of the main reasons which the Prime Minister and what he will share with the Congress members today.
Well, I think that every Israeli would agree that re-solidifying those connections is key. Again, not even just with Israel, but I feel that one of the greatest things lacking is as I think that the objective truths that we're fighting, with the details, with the rights and the lefts and every shade of gray in between, there are some basic truths that all of the West, people who live within the boundaries of law and order and civilization, all of us benefit from that, and we must all of it fight us. My question to you is, knowing that the head of the snake is Iran, in a perfect world, what are the ideal conditions to confront that head of that snake in the Islamic Republic of Iran, and what are our chances of getting somewhere near the conditions to and willingness to actually act on that?
Look, Ilana, on Iran, I think our enemies know how to fight us. They know that we value human life as precious. I've told you already that Hamas is upset that we haven't killed more, that more Gazans have not been killed. They wish that 10 times more have been killed, and the same for the other damage in Gaza. They wish that there was more of it. Because of that fact, Hamas are willing to bear these costs, because it means that the world will come crushing down on Israel, as they have done. And so for Iran in particular, they think they've figured a way to beat Israel. It's not on the battlefield. It's in the media. It's on the BBC, it's on CNN, it's on MSNBC, and on so many others, not through terror, not through tank columns, not through even a guerrilla war. They won't win that way. They know they won't win that way, but they will win through column inches, through the images of this war in the media. Hamas and Hezbollah, they're immune to the cost to their own people. These jihadi Jew killers are shaping the very strategic environment in which they have started this war and are carrying out. So Israel must respond and defend itself, of course. Now, Iran knows that it can use the media to destroy us. Their distorted version of Islam means that it's a revolution for them. They wish to restore Islam to its perceived place at the top of history and society. It all begins, though, with destroying Israel. That's their philosophy. They've said this very, very clearly. So going back to those members of Congress, they need to understand this fact. Whoever wins the election in America needs to understand this fact. We are only a stopgap on the jihadis' route to the West, the great Satan, as they call it. So for this enemy, the world needs to unite to create a great strategy to stand up to this hatred. It's being run by the genocidal fascist regime in Iran. They don't have elections, of course. When they do, there are farcical people. The media talk about Iran having a moderate leader or a reformist leader. The new reformist leader of Iran was very, very quick to point out that he wanted peace with every single country in the world except for Israel.
So with our remaining time, David, knowing that it is probably all but, let's put it this way. In the time that we have remaining, speaking about Hezbollah and the looming threat up north, I would like to know, is there any hope of an actual lasting diplomatic exit out of that horrific war that everyone's, and also I'd like to know, what is the government doing to build up ability to make that battle and to secure the safety and also the economy of our citizens?
Okay, Lana, let's just talk about the threat that we face from Hezbollah. Since the October the 8th, they fired 6,800 rockets at us. 6,800 rockets. Almost 200,000 dunams of land up north in an area which is maybe a third of Israel's agriculture has been damaged by this rocket fire. And I'm talking about harvests which have been greatly disrupted of avocados, of grapes, of wine grapes, of peaches, apples, olive oil, not to mention the around 100,000 of our people which have been displaced to keep them safe, of course, for more than 9 months now. I've had an opportunity to meet some of the children which have been displaced, and none of us here in the Prime Minister's office have been anything but moved at the trauma which these young people are facing, having to leave their schools to go into another school temporarily. It's incredibly disconcerting for them and their families. But look, this Hezbollah aggression, I must tell you that we will use all means necessary to restore security on our northern border and safely return our citizens. So I want to say to you, look, one way or another, whether through diplomacy or through other means, the state of Lebanon and Hezbollah, this terrorist organization, which is operating under the guidance of Iran, bear full responsibility. Lebanon hosts this terrorist organization, and the deterioration of the security situation which we're facing in the north, it's in violation of United Nations Security Council resolutions. No one ever talks about this in the media, of course, 1559 and 1701. One way or another, we will push Hezbollah back behind the Litani River. It's an imperative for us. Of course, we'd prefer to do it through diplomatic means. And I know the Americans are working hard on that together with the French government as well. But one way or another, we will return our people home. This is not a sustainable situation.
No, indeed not. And just as a final word, what would be your, and surely it's to your own self and family, your word to the Israeli people to build up our resilience in the coming months and years? What would you suggest economically? What can we do to really, so everyone who isn't really picking up arms and going to fight the bad guys, how do we support it at home?
Well, I think the Israeli people have acted in the most remarkable way. All of us have seen the way that this country has come together from a period of political infighting. It switched on a dime to coming together. Look, I would just leave you with the words of one of the Hamas kidnappers, one of the Hamas terrorists, which said directly to one of our hostages. And our hostages, when they were released, they shared this conversation with us. And this has been reported in the media. I'm not releasing anything secret here, but I'm not sure it's had enough coverage. The Hamas terrorist said very, very clearly, he said, when Israel are united, no one can touch them. They are untouchable. Almost a mystical force surrounds them. They know that Hamas can't have an impact, or any other terrorist. But when we're divided, that's when they attack. Now, the media, even here in Israel, likes to make a lot of noise about divisions here in Israel. And of course, this is a democracy. I often describe this as a democracy on steroids. It's democracy plus. We love to argue with each other. That's a national Jewish characteristic. But we must, at this time, as we have done, we must come together and stay together, because that's the best thing that we can do. All of us here, mums and dads, the older people, to everyone, even if you're not putting on a green uniform and taking arms, no matter what you're doing, there are many, many acts of kindness which this people have come together to do. It's extremely moving for people that have not come from the society and are integrating ourselves into society. I've never seen anything like it in my entire life. It's a very emotional thing for us, but we've come together, and if we stay together, we are unbeatable, which is why the motto of this entire conflict has been Yachad Lenetzach. We are together, we will win. And we are smashing this terrorist army. There is a way to go still, but we're smashing down these terrorists. We're facing them down. And together with a united population, we are literally unbeatable. So that's my message to Israel's people.
Couldn't agree more. David Mencer, thank you so much for your time. We hope to meet with you again soon.
Great to be with you. Thank you for the opportunity.